election lies. Why? To justify investigating the Trump campaign. Joining us now with reaction, House Intelligence Committee Ranking Member, Congressman Devin Nunes, House Freedom Caucus Chairman, Congressman Mark Meadows. By the way, without these two men, we would never have discovered this biggest abuse of power scandal in history and corruption scandal. Thank you both for your hard work.
Thank you, Sean.
Let's start first, Congressman Nunes. Well, let's start with your reaction to this new revelation, and more importantly, so they were warned again not to use information, and they did it again. Why? How did they get away with that?
I mean, this is obviously a new revelation. We did not know about this. There were rumors about it, that this black ledger, that it wasn't true. But now, from what Solomon has learned, that people within the FBI clearly knew that this was just another dossier. I mean, if you go and look back over the last 2.5 years, this is like dossier fever. Everybody's got a dossier that they were paying for, they were getting from Russians. And, you know, dossier is going to go down as just fake news. And all of this was just planted into the FBI and used. Now, look, I think Paul Manafort still has a lot of explaining to do. But the question is look, if this investigation was poisoned from the beginning, I think it raises real questions that the American people need answers to.
I think we do. By the way, you mentioned that, well, pervy Democrats were grilling Hope Hicks about her love life, and the president said that Democrats wanted pictures with Hope Hicks that they could post online. What's that all about?
Well, during the day yesterday, members of Congress, Republicans, were coming out, and they just were shocked at the questions that were being asked to Miss Hicks.
How bad?
Well, they were asking about her love life. I don't have the specifics, but I just think asking about someone's love life in Congress, I mean, come on.
Now,
I mean,
how would that be
really
relevant to any investigation as it relates to, well, election interference? Congressman Meadows, you have gone and done a very deep dive. I think the best work that you and Congressman Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz and others have done is these closed-door interviews that, thanks to Congressman Doug Collins, we now have access to. And you guys were asking the right questions. Now that we know that they use more false information that they were warned about, to what level can we say this was a premeditated, you know, conspiracy even, to commit a fraud on a court and to influence an election with phony information and to undo the will of the American people?
Well, it was all about undoing the will of the people, but it's interesting tonight you led in with Tom Fenton and some of the emails he's talking about. Of course, Chairman Nunes and Jim Jordan have both been all over this, and that is the use of the media. What we found is even with this John Solomon reporting, it's not only that they knew that it was false, then they actually worked with the media to make sure it gets reported so they can use the same media reports to justify their surveillance. And so here's the real problem that I have with all of it. The deeper we dive, the more we see that protocols were broken. And candidly, you know, when you start to look for the real there, it is there, but it's on the part of the FBI actually planning false narratives in the public domain.
Well, and the question is now, we've got the investigations ongoing. Congressman Nunes, Americans, I think they want to know more than anything else are the people that helped rig the investigation into Hillary, that were warned about lies that they were using to obtain FISA warrants and applications, that were also spreading misinformation of the Washington Post and David Corn, Clinton sycophants, and then using it to bludgeon a sitting president. 4 separate conclusions now, including your Intel committee, say no collusion. Can you please explain those people that did these things, that they're going to be held accountable?
Well, we're not going to stop until we get the entire truth out. And I want to follow on what Mr. Meadows said. And I think it's important. What we learned today from the Judicial Watch papers and emails is that you actually not only had this circular reporting where you have FBI leaking to a reporter running a story, FBI using the story. We now have something new in the chain, and that is you have reporters basically spying on people and then taking it to the FBI. I mean, you know, probably in exchange for favors.
Yeah. Well, and your thoughts, Mark?
You know, I think the big thing that we've got to understand is that there were a number of players at the top levels of the FBI that continued to work with the media in an inappropriate manner in order to spin a narrative that we're still dealing with 2 years later. It's time the American people judge for themselves. Let's declassify everything and make sure that the truth comes out. The president will be exonerated when that happens.
All right, quick answer. Should the president have a response against Iran?
Yeah, I think he does need to have a response against Iran. He's been a bad regime for 40 years.
I think that it has to be measured and certainly calibrated appropriately, but I believe that this president will act accordingly, and we'll support him in that decision.
Thank you both. When we come back, the great one, Mark Levin. He has the #1 book in the country. He'll share his thoughts on Iranian aggression, Joe Biden stumbles in the 2020 primary, and we'll talk a little bit about books when we get back.